the partnership with IGLTA for so many years. And I want to pay homage to John Munoz, who is on the call, who literally really set the foundation for where Hilton started in terms of their DE&I work. And I am here in which to continue to progress it. So John, I definitely hope that I do you justice.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you.
Most definitely. So we are just so incredibly proud of the foundation as well as the work that has been done. And we're continuing to see more and more of a need for us to get deeper, not to rest on our laurels, but to continue to make sure that we are elevating in every sense of the word as we are focusing on creating a more inclusive environment for our team members, but not just stopping there. Also taking a look at our owner community, our suppliers, and across the board. So if you can advance this slide for us, Jennifer. One of the things that we know so very clearly is that it starts at the top. Our leaders are fully dedicated to this. And as you all, I'm sure you're well aware, is that the hospitality industry has taken a significant hit in this particular year from COVID. You know, we saw the world come to a complete standstill. And when the world came to a standstill, obviously travel was not at the forefront of everyone's mind. As a matter of fact, it was actually discouraged, right? To keep us all safe. And so we understand that. But nonetheless, our executive committee is completely and fully dedicated to continuing to drive our diversity efforts. And at no part did we stop this particular initiative. In talking with our CEO, I can definitely share all of these pillars that you'll see here, and I'll touch on them briefly. We have continued throughout this particular time, and now we are just doubling down on them as we're working on our recovery. So from the top, our EC, if you can go back just a quick minute, and I can hit on some of these so everyone's aware. Thank you. So from the very top, our executive committee led by our very own CEO, Chris Nassetta, he has a quarterly meeting with the executive committee in which to go through our diversity dashboard. Now, we do touch on this even more throughout the quarter, but there is a grounded time within their meetings for them to really break down and go through the details around where it is we are, how are we going to present it to the board, and what more needs to be done. Additionally, we're continuing to ensure that there is a DE&I objective inside of the greater KSPs that we roll out at the beginning of every single year. Also, our EC has a networking program, and this is essentially where the EC is serving as mentors to our top talent leaders across the globe, in which to ensure that we can continue to instill the values of leadership, Hilton leadership, that is necessary, while also making sure that we're keeping inclusion top of mind for everyone. And then we also have our team member resource groups, which I'll double down on here shortly. But our team member resource groups are really the heart and soul of what it is that we do. These are team members that are coming together in which to ensure that they can share with us, create allyship across the board, and really activate in a meaningful way in which to educate us on the challenges that might be impacting their demographic. Next slide, please. So as we know, following the events of last year, and Clark and I have had this conversation multiple times, the events of last year that took place here in the United States with the murder of George Floyd, we saw many companies start to spur into action and create DE&I roles if they did not have it previously, or further double down on some of their actions and initiatives. And one of the proud things I can say with Hilton is that we have been on this journey now for more than 10 years. We did not just immediately start, and while everyone is somewhere else on this particular spectrum of a journey, we have been in action and continuing to grow deeper inside of our efforts. And so this progressive timeline just gives basically an oversight. Some things I can definitely share just within the past year here is that we were recognized as a top 50 company by Diversity Inc. For our diversity efforts. So we came in at number 2, and we are going to be driving here for this number 1 spot, no doubt. But we're definitely happy of that particular achievement. Next slide, please. So here, I'll stay here just briefly. We want to make sure that everyone is very aware of how we are essentially defining diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And given that we are a global company, we have to be very mindful that there are some limitations in terms of what information you can actually report, what information you can actually collect on as you are spanning the different regions. But we do have our core attributes, our advanced attributes, and then our full inclusion attributes. And this is essentially based on where we are trying to track inside of the world. This is the attributes essentially that we are focused on continuing to drive. And this is what we are holding ourselves accountable to. Next slide, please. So now let's talk a little bit about the overarching strategy. So we have a framework in place that is the fundamental pillars is culture, talent, and marketplace. For culture, we are focused on creating an inclusive workplace and culture driven by our team members. We want to ensure that they feel safe viewing, sharing their viewpoints, as well as ensuring that they have a comfort level that we are going to take their feedback and act upon it. Within the talent realm, we seek to attract, to develop, and retain the best and the brightest talent. And so in this particular segment, we are definitely very keen on setting diversity targets for recruiting as well as talent development. Each of our development programs, we have talent initiatives as well as targets that we are always seeking to meet to make sure that there is both gender as well as ethnic parity inside of our programs. And then a marketplace. This is where we're seeking to engage and support and create business opportunities for our communities. So again, we just don't stop at the internal. We are also very aware on terms of what is Hilton's impact inside of the communities for where we serve and where we are currently doing business. Next slide, please. So as I had mentioned just briefly before, our TMRGs are, again, a big and significant portion of our particular lifeline as we're thinking about D&I, but they're not the full book. And so when we come to culture, we know that we have currently over 18,000 total team members that are dedicating their time and efforts in which to increasing allyship, driving education, and seeking to develop themselves within the networks for which they choose to participate. Our TMRGs are acts in which to provide business insights, focus on their development, as well as drive community outreach. And we continue to see our team members be dedicated to this in multiple ways. Next slide. Of course, we currently have 8 TMRGs that have been in effect for multiple years now. And with our Pride TMRG, we are just so incredibly thankful for their contributions and just the way that they have activated. In this past year, even though we saw many of our TMRGs kind of take more of a lighter approach, we saw the Pride TMRG lead in. We saw this particular leadership group elevate their voices, pull people together, continue to meet, continue to be supportive of each other through these very difficult times. And I just was so humbled and impressed, honestly, by their commitment to not just each other, but to the greater business environment. And so I can share here that, yes, they continue to align to our greater foundation, or I would say our framework, which is culture, talent, marketplace. But they also wanted to then therefore pull out the community segment, because there is so much that they realize that they can impact within the community. And there has been a particular focus on that. So while normally the community would fall under marketplace, they decided that they wanted to pull that one out so they can have a committed focus to that particular pillar. And so we definitely support their innovation in that way. Next slide. In terms of marketplace, as I've shared, we are committed to ensuring that not just do we have diversity internally, but that we're also taking a look at who are the suppliers that we're doing business with? Where are we allocating our funds and spending our time? And we actually want to hold, and this is what we have been doing for several years, is we're holding our diverse suppliers we're holding them accountable for ensuring that they too are setting targets within their own company for us to do business. Because one of the things that we know and understand is we can definitely live our values, but we want to ensure and hold our partners accountable for upholding and living their values as well. It just makes for a much better world holistically. And so you can see some of our strategic partners. While it's not limited to just this page, we did wanted to just give some focus and recognition to this, with IGLTA being right at the top. Next slide, please. So if you have not heard, we do have our corporate social responsibility team, as well as all of our team members here at Hilton, is focused on travel with purpose. And this is essentially our commitment to redefine sustainable travel. So by 2030, we are committing to doubling our social impact investment and cutting our environmental footprint in half. I will say, with the structure that we have at Hilton, being both corporate, owned and managed, as well as franchised, this is no easy feat. But our executive committee, as well as all of our team members, are fully dedicated to this. And this is something that continues to remain at the very top of our mind. So you can see on the left-hand side where we're essentially doubling our investment in social impact. So of course, there's an open door pledge that is there. We do have a disaster response fund, which all of our team members tend to activate against when we know that we have team members in communities that are in trouble. And then of course, just the volunteer hours on an annual basis, we are constantly reaching out to identify how many volunteer hours holistically have we contributed into our communities, in which to keep us not just engaged, but also to keep us grounded in the fact that we need to keep doing more, in which to make the world a better place. And if you can turn to the next slide, please. And so I will end where I started. There is so much that we have to be proud of. And this is just a page in which to say we recognize that we have an award-winning culture, but we also know that everything does not come down to just the accolades and the awards. We have to be committed to doing this work, and this work is work that will never stop. There's always going to be more to do. And so we celebrate this moment. We pay homage and thank and appreciate our partners such as IGLTA in helping us win these efforts, but we do not rest on our laurels. We know we have so much more work to do, and we are committed into make that happen. And so I will pause there. I don't know if there's time for any questions. I don't want to take up too much of Jennifer's time.
I think we'll hold the questions to the end while Jennifer's getting the next presentation set up. I'm sure there are questions regarding Deshawn's presentation. If you all could just hold them to the end or put them in the Q&A box on the left-hand or the right-hand side of your screen. We're monitoring that, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So Jennifer, I'll let you, looks like you're ready. I'll let you go from here. And you're on mute, Jennifer.
There we go.
Yay.
Okay. Hold on, I'm going to stop one moment. There we go. Okay. All right. So as Clark mentioned previously, I'm Jennifer Emerson, and I manage our sales relationships with our LGBTQ customers. And we are so thankful to partner with IGLTA and had a wonderful conference at our Hilton Midtown, New York a couple of years ago, and look forward to many more in the future when we are traveling and meeting in person again. So first of all, I am delighted to share that we are 98% open around the world. So our 98%, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we lost your presentation.
I'm sorry?
We lost the presentation.
Oh, okay. Well, let me give me one moment.
But we're glad to hear that you're 98%.
Yeah, well, just to give you some perspective while Jennifer's pulling that up, at the height of the pandemic, we were running a system-wide occupancy. When I see system-wide across all of our portfolio of hotels around the world, about 20% occupancy, and even lower digits than that at some points, but depending on specific markets. So we are now close to about 50 to 55% system-wide. So, just the green shoots that we continue to see as we navigate through the recovery. Jennifer, back over to you.
And that was Matthew Stunt, by the way, one of our fearless sales leaders. Thanks for chiming in, Matt. Do you have me back?
We do.
Great. Okay. So, yeah, and it's been a challenging year, to put it lightly, for our industry. We have ways to go in our recovery, but we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'd like to start with an overview of the cleanliness and sanitation protocols that we've rolled out thus far, where we are now, and what's to come. In June of 2020, we launched Hilton CleanStay, which was developed in collaboration with the Mayo Clinic and Lysol, and really builds on our already vigorous cleaning standards and provides some peace of mind when you're staying with any of our Hilton brands. CleanStay delivers the same reliable cleanliness that you would expect from a Hilton, but with some added confidence of industry-leading hygiene practices created to keep you safe. Some of those key features would be increased cleaning and disinfection frequency of public spaces, sanitation stations at entrances and high traffic areas, enhanced disinfection of fitness centers. We do have some operational changes to restaurants, bars, and in-room dining. We do have contactless check-in, which we've had for several years now through our digital key in the Hilton app, and enhanced team member safety and personal protective equipment with temperature checks and for team members and event attendees. And of course, we do require face coverings in all indoor public areas for guests and team members, and in accordance with our CDC guidelines. For the guest room experience, some additional features would include increased disinfection of the top 10 high touch point areas like light switches and door handles, reduced paper amenities like pads, pens, and guest directories in the rooms. After the room is thoroughly cleaned, our housekeeping inspector verifies that the room meets CleanStay standards and places the Hilton CleanStay room seal on the door. And that room seal indicates that guests have not been, or the rooms have not been accessed since they were cleaned. Guests are invited to tailor their housekeeping services to what their comfort level is. They can schedule through the front desk any additional amenities, such as linens and toiletries, that can be delivered in protective packaging and placed at the guest room door. And of course, all guest rooms are thoroughly cleaned, sanitized, and disinfected between guest stays. Now, after launching CleanStay, we took everything that we learned and applied those protocols to meetings and events, which brings us to Hilton EventReady. And we listened to the ones that know meetings best, which are our customers and seasoned meeting planners and our on-property event managers. And we designed this program to create events that are clean, flexible, safe, and socially responsible. The Hilton CleanStay standards apply, and once again, they outline sanitation stations, key high touch point areas, as well as requiring our vendor and supplier compliance. And when we say Hilton EventReady is flexible, we mean that our sales and customer partnerships are grounded in transparency and shared objectives. We want to be responsive to meet those ever-evolving needs of our customers while offering flexible contracting terms and express agreements. And when we say that EventReady is safe and socially responsible, we mean not only is the goal to provide safe contactless experiences, but also environmental impact solutions and community service experiences to support and uplift our communities. And of course, we want to offer all of this while continuing to deliver on the light and warmth of hospitality, our Hilton promise. And inside the meeting and event space, our event attendees can expect additional focus and disinfection of those 10 high touch point areas. So including tables, chairs, door handles, lighting, drapes, phones, furniture, podiums, all of your AV equipment as well. And all of our event planners can expect to receive a room checklist prior to arrival. And this will be a guide to inspect the room for sanitation and confirm that EventReady cleanliness standards have been met. And only at that time does the event planner break the seal on the meeting room door for the event to begin. Our hotels are equipped with EventReady signage and floor decals to promote physical distancing throughout the hotel and event space. That would include elevators, escalators, registration areas, and any food and beverage stations. All room setups are spaced 6 feet apart with wipe downs and cleanings in between sessions. And protective measures are around our food and beverage service to ensure safety of our team members and event attendees. And food and beverage is probably the topic of which I've received the most questions from my customers and meeting planners, and many wondering how we offer safe contactless experiences while still offering, a creative wow presentations and still deliver on the culinary innovation that you would expect from us. And so you would expect some protective procedures, individualized portions, attendance at food stations as needed to maintain any of our safety protocols. Lots of great trends we're seeing in bento boxes and mason jars, contactless coffee and water stations that are retrofitted to be push-pour, glove machines, which are really fun. If you haven't seen those, you should Google those. Those are really cool. Outdoor food and beverage functions seem to be a trend where weather is permitting. Also keep in mind that with individualized portions, this could be an opportunity to increase waste. So our commitment is to reduce waste and environmental impact, reusable glass jars and containers, and eco-friendly packaging when available. Which brings us to our 2030 goals, which Deshawn mentioned as well, and our commitment to redefine sustainable travel by cutting our environmental footprint in half and doubling our social impact by 2030. And our goals focus on our impact in our hotel operations, in our communities, and in our supply chain. And some of our goals include reducing our carbon intensity, reducing our water use by 50%, activating context-based water projects in our communities, reducing our waste by 50%, requiring all managed hotels to participate in food donation programs where available, sending zero soap to landfills by recycling all of our guest soap bars where available. And we're the first in the industry to make this commitment. We're doubling our local sourcing of meat, seafood, and cotton, and doubling our investment in youth community programs. So when planning an event in one of our hotels, your event manager can actually utilize our LightStay meeting impact calculator, which is a great tool that can give you a detailed estimate on the environmental impact that your specific meeting might have. And this report uses information about the number of attendees, your meals, your event space, room nights, along with the hotel-specific environmental measurements. And this gives you an estimate on your carbon emissions, your energy use, water waste, etc. And really it can be used to help you reduce your meeting footprint, and us collectively to reduce our impact as a whole. And as a precursor to more exciting things to come, the Hilton EventReady hybrid solutions will begin rolling out globally this month. And as we emerge from a challenging year, one business reality seems to be pretty clear, and that's that hybrid meetings will be our new normal. And when I say a hybrid meeting, I'm referring to a scenario in which a smaller number of participants are physically in one in-person meeting, and then the rest are a virtual audience joining by a web conference platform. So maybe you have 50 people that meet in one city every year for your annual convention, and in the next year or two, maybe your attendees don't feel as comfortable getting on a plane, but they may be comfortable driving to a city in their region. So one scenario is to have several smaller regional in-person meetings, and then one hub location where your speakers, presenters, and streaming is happening. So this is quite a dramatic shift in how people are used to meeting, and a pretty dramatic shift in how our planners are used to planning meetings. So bottom line, they need support and tools to guide them in this new way of executing meetings. And our new hybrid solutions will provide a suite of offerings to include a portfolio of hybrid ready hotels, which would have IT readiness, each having undergone an evaluation to assess what their bandwidth is, what their infrastructure is to be able to meet the requirements of small hybrid meetings. We'll have multi-site express agreements available, so you can book multiple hybrid ready locations with one Hilton contract. And then some technology packages to help with broadcasting and streaming needs, some pre-built presentation stages, etc. And if you are interested in seeing the EventReady protocols live and in action, we do have several hotels around the US that are having some ready when you are site visits. So this is where you can experience the hotel through the eyes of a meeting attendee from arrival to departure. And the cities that I've listed here are currently scheduling these site visits, and we do expect more to be added to the list. We have a maximum of 10 attendees at each visit, socially distant. It's every Tuesday and Thursday, and you can earn continuing education credits for attending as well. RSVPs can be made at hiltonreadywhenyouare.com directly, or you can reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you with the hotel. So I know that Deshawn and I have shared a lot of information, and we are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Really good, really useful information, I think, for everybody. And I know that a few questions have popped up in the chat. So Adrian, I'll turn it over to you to share those questions with Deshawn and Jennifer.
Great. All right, so we do have a question from Billy Colbert. It's a question for Deshawn. He's asking, he knows that Hilton has many hotels in countries where homosexuality is still criminalized, and Hilton has sovereign wealth funds from some of those same countries who are owners of Hilton branded properties. So how do you support your LGBTQ+ associates and customers in those places currently, and what do you think might be possible in the future?
Excellent question. So listen, I think that there is, for several years to come ahead of us, I think there's going to be still lots of work to do. We know that from different countries, there are regulations, laws that are in place in which is essentially silencing a significant portion of that community. One of the things that we have done here since the recasting of our TMRGs just late last summer is we have transitioned to a virtual platform. And in doing so, it is removing the geographical limitations for our team members and allowing them to actually still unite as a community. So despite what might be the challenges and the limitations in said country, we are removing that and allowing them to still have a safe space in which to come together. With that, we have seen many more team members essentially sign up for our Pride TMRG specifically, state some of their concerns, and then holistically as a leadership team, we are coming together in which to see how can we continue to be advocates for them, yes, internally, but more so from a government affairs on a global scale. What more can we be doing? What resources do we need to continue to put in place? While we don't own how some of these countries govern themselves, we do feel as though with being part of the community that we will essentially, over a period of time, longer period of time, have greater influence. I don't know if that answers the question for you.
That was a very encouraging answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Encouraging, but very truthful, because I mean, it's heartbreaking, some of the stories that our team members have essentially shared in terms of them not being able to be themselves. And, you know, I will say, while I would consider myself an ally, not part of the community, but I will say being Black in America makes me feel very similar to knowing and understanding that, so I can understand that plight through that particular lens. And I'm committed to doing all that I can, as well as elevating those particular voices to our broader leadership team in which to make the changes that is necessary.
Thank you.
Adrian, do you have any other questions in the chat, or do we want to just open it up for people to ask their questions directly?
We can open it up. I don't see any questions in the chat. So if you feel like you want to ask the question directly, go for it. Or if you want to put it in the chat, that's okay too. We'll still be monitoring it and can ask your questions for you.
And Jennifer, while people are getting up the courage to ask additional questions, I have one for you. You had mentioned in one of our previous calls the EventReady playbook. Do you want to tell our group a little bit more about that, or share some insight about that portion of it?
Yeah, so the EventReady playbook is a really great guide that our events team, and in collaboration with our event managers on property and our customers, it's a very comprehensive book. It's, as of now, it's still growing. It's about 140 pages long, but it is an ever-evolving live tool online that we would share with our meeting planners directly. So that's something that if you have a Hilton Worldwide Sales Advisor, and if you don't, I'm happy to connect you with the appropriate team to get you matched up if that is of interest to you. But that is something that comes with that relationship. So when you are working with a Hilton Worldwide Sales Advisor, this is a tool that we provide, that really a lot of the information that I shared today around EventReady protocols and our meetings and events, this really just dives deeper into all the details, all of the questions that you might want to ask when you're first starting, say, a hybrid meeting, or just some of the new questions that you might not have had to ask before, but in this new environment, they're questions that you need to ask now. So it's really it's a really good guide. Thanks for mentioning that, Clark.
Sure.
I see that Billy has his hand raised. Do you want to ask your question, Billy?
Thanks, Adrian. And another question for Deshawn. I'm curious how you're training frontline employees around the world to welcome diverse guests in general. I was really intrigued to see the core attributes, and then the sort of the three breakdown of three different categories of diversities, from sort of identity attributes to lifestyle things. So I'm wondering how you actually train the thousands and thousands of Hilton associates at front desks to, say, welcome a transgender guest who uses ze, zim, zer pronouns.
Excellent question. So I'm definitely happy in which to share. I think first and foremost, our training starts around our Hilton values. So that essentially grounds everyone in the common framework. We also then therefore have unconscious bias training that we essentially rolled out. And then on top of that, we created some specific guest scenarios. So this is training that has not been delivered by any other company. It's nothing that we bought off the shelves. We actually designed it internally, and it's about creating an intentionally inclusive guest experience. And so what we did is we sought hotels from around the world in which to give some of their most challenging guest experience situations, as well as thinking about what is culturally acceptable, right? So that essentially would hit to your question. And when you think about that, we brought all of those particular scenarios together and created a training that spoke to that and also spoke essentially how to handle those particular situations. Again, grounding it back in it matters not maybe what your own particular beliefs are, what your religious beliefs are, whatever, but at the end of the day, our goal is to spread the light and warmth of hospitality to all of our guests. And so we have a certain standard in place in terms of what that should look like. Additionally, over the past 6 months here, we've done a lot more shift briefing because we know that there are heightened tensions around the world, both racially from a discrimination perspective, hitting on racial ethnicity, hitting on religious ethnicity, hitting on just sexual orientation and preference. And so within those particular shift briefs, our general managers, as well as our HRDs, so those are human resource directors that are on property, are scheduled to kick off those different shifts with a brief meeting in which to reset people in expectation. There's also role play cards to say, okay, this might be how you may personally feel, but here's the expectation in terms of how we are anticipating you to manage our guests on property. And so we're continuing to build out training in that way. So I will say I have a learning and development background and was in learning and development for many years. There is no one training that fits all. And so a key to our success is going to be to continue to get the feedback and to keep tweaking and tailoring each of our different offerings to some of the situations that are arising. And it might start looking different by region, it might start looking different by country, but we do have a global offering that is a set of standardized trainings in terms of how we essentially train our team members to manage those situations.
Thank you, Deshawn, for that answer. That was really interesting to hear. And I see that we have a question from Spiridon. Has this training ever been challenged by employees or authorities?
Yeah, I'm going to be 100% transparent with you. The answer is yes. We actually, with one of the scenarios that we put in that creating an intentionally inclusive workplace, we received a lot of pushback on it. There was one that dealt with religion and essentially how do you manage a religious conflict and or tension if you have a guest that is seeking something and there might not necessarily be agreement or we cannot provide that level of service. And then also one that speaks to the LGBT community. And the feedback that we got, we ended up essentially standing on our laurels with this, in which to say, our focus is again to spread the light and warmth to all of our guests. And so we do not dictate for which category and or ethnicity or race that any of these guests may fall into, but we should be positioning ourselves in which to make sure that we can meet all of them with the proper respect that they are due as our guests and as we are thinking about how do we continue to expand our business model. So without a doubt, we are going to continue to meet challenges. I will say we just with one of our latest moves, and this is not specific to any one community, but more so from a political perspective, there's just been a lot of questions around, who are we actually donating to from a political stance? And, several global companies have PACs that are in place. And, our position is we suspended our PAC last year. Back in March due to COVID, and we are now going to continue that suspension indefinitely. because of just the egregious events that happened just last week. And so all of that plays into some of these greater things when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because where you are essentially investing your dollars and who do you have voicing your opinions and out there on the front lines fighting for you does make a difference. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for the honesty.
And Deshawn, I'd just like to point out too, in your title, it is, we're used to hearing diversity, equity, inclusion, D&I, but your title is actually diversity, inclusion, and recognition. And that seems to be a new trend in the industry too, moving towards this idea of recognition. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah, I can say, I think, listen, every company has to determine how they're going to title it. I think we're all holistically, when I think about the network that I'm engaging with in terms of just people in this particular line of business, we're all focused on the same things. One of the members. Our team members are showing up each and every day in so many different ways, in so many challenging ways. And we have to make sure that we're recognizing that, because that A, creates a safe space for them. B, it helps us definitely retain them. And then C, it's ensuring that our leaders stay focused on what is most critically important as we're continuing to build the workforce of the future. And so when you pull all of that together, we felt like it just nestled very nicely. And so that's how we have it today. I will say I am not opposed, because do I think that equity is extremely important? I feel as though I embrace that. I feel as though that our leadership is constantly thinking about this holistically. Am I, considering essentially adding that particular word into the title? And answer is yes, but nonetheless, I think the effort is there, title aside.
And I see John Panzella has his hand up.
Hey, thank you. And thank you, Deshawn and Jennifer. This has really been interesting, and thank you. We love having Hilton as a major partner of ours. I was just thinking, as you're seeing, you're getting a lot of questions from members of ours in Europe and South America, and we have people on here from Africa as well. Jennifer, when you were showing the hotels or cities that are doing those virtual tours or in-person tours, is there a plan to expand that to other continents? Because our membership is indeed international. Or do you know at this point?
Yes. I do know that we are expanding domestically in the US. I would imagine as certain restrictions in Europe and in other continents are start to get lighter around the globe, that we will see more of these. I haven't heard specific cities or countries yet that has been added to the list. I don't know if, Matt, you had some other information on that, but I do know that our plan is to continue to grow that list.
Yeah, Jennifer's accurate. The only thing that I would add is that, these elements of CleanStay and EventReady are global for us. There's obviously nuances in every market. But while it might not be a hotel in the formal Ready When You Are program, they can absolutely, we've had hotels outside, even domestically, and others that are happy to help, share that experience on a one-off basis as we need to as well. So pilot with a specific set of hotels, and we've had others that have, certainly can provide that experience at request.
That's wonderful. And if you know of certain ones in international markets, let us know, and then we'll help communicate that to our members as well.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
And I do think that Adrian is going to be sharing a video in the follow-up email after the call. We'll have an EventReady video and some links to our hybrid solutions and everything that we discussed on the call today.
No, it's like
Jennifer, do you have any success stories, or have you hosted any events using the EventReady solution or the hybrid event solution yet?
Yes, we've had a couple. Of course, Florida has had several in-person meetings that have been successful. Starting small, our meeting planners are just kind of taking baby steps back into this in-person meeting world again, and we're all learning as we go. We're learning about hybrid solutions just like they are. We've had some great successes at our Anatole in Dallas recently with some in-person meetings. So, there's bumps along the way, and we're all just learning together as we go to create better, safer experiences moving forward.
Great. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time. Does anybody have one last question before we close out the call?
I just had a comment, Clark. So this is John Munoz, and I just wanted to thank Deshawn and Jennifer and Matthew for being on the call today. It's good to hear how the business has progressed. Of course, I was there when things were going very badly, and it's good to see that we're at 98% open and 55% occupancy. That shows the level of recovery that the organization is seeing. So I'm really proud to see that happening. But I wanted to appreciate and thank you for your continued support of IGLTA. I know while I was there, it was one of the premier organizations that we supported on the LGBT side, and I'm grateful for the continued support. I was really grateful to hear kind of the progress being made on the D&I strategy, as well as to hear about LightStay, EventReady, and hybrid events. So much being done. What I loved about Hilton was the innovation that the company had and the appreciation for the team members, the execution and commitment for diversity and inclusion throughout. So I'm really, really grateful. I know that Amy Martin Zickenfuss is just joining the foundation as one of its newest board members. So we're incredibly grateful for her leadership and representing Hilton on that board. And so just again, thank you for what you're doing. I know that we're planning to have our next convention in Atlanta in the September timeframe. We're hoping that maybe you'll have an opportunity to engage with us there as well. And then in the future, again, look for opportunities to partner with Hilton to find a property in whichever location we have, wherever we host our convention, and look to Hilton as a possible host for us again. So thank you again. It's good to see you all, and I look forward to our continued collaboration.
Great. Thank you, John. And yes, thank you to everybody at Hilton. John, the global partnership that we have in place with Hilton today is really your legacy. I can remember the first meeting that you and I had back in Chicago in 2009 or 10, I think it was, and we talked about the global partnership, and we're really, really grateful for where it's come today. So thank you for everything you did to lay the foundation and lay the framework for that. Deshawn, Jennifer, Matthew, any closing words before we sign off?
I will just say thank you again so much for the opportunity in which to engage and for the continued partnership. Clark, I will say both you and Adrian have been absolutely phenomenal partners, always checking in, always keeping us up to date. Even when there are events that's taking place in our backyard, Clark is first to the draw to give me the latest and greatest and make sure that I'm okay. So I truly, truly appreciate that, and just look forward to all of the things that we're going to be able to accomplish together here in the future.
Thank you.
And I would just echo Deshawn's comments, such a great partnership that we have with IGLTA, and thank you, Adrian and Clark, for your support for this call and in our partnership. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it as well. Thank you to all of our members and partners and board members from both the association side and the foundation side that joined us today. Again, it was a great way to kick off the new year, kick off 2021 with our first IGLTA Members Connect of the year. More to come later on this year, so stay tuned to the IGLTA Members Connect page on the website, and we will be sending out future invitations as well. As a reminder, for any new members that are joining us today, we do have a new Members Connect call next Thursday, the 21st of January. So if you're interested in that and you haven't already registered for that, that information is on our website as well. Thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Obrigado. Boa tarde.
Obrigado.
Great seeing everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Stay safe, stay
Bye,
resilient.
everyone.
Hello. Is it just 3 of us? I think. Yeah.
Okay. I was waiting to see because you can start kicking people out of the meeting if you need to.
That I did. I actually
Oh, you did.